This is Christian Farmer's Tropic Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Tuesday, the 21st of October. A couple themes in play today. Number one, I would say some earnings surprises, which led to some rotations in the market. And then you got your short squeezes that kind of went on today and kind of picked up in the afternoon with some names. So that's a story for now. What I'm going to do in this video is just kind of go over just what we're seeing in the indices right now, and then what we're seeing under the hood, because I think that's really the big thing right now. And you can see on the left of your screen, and I should probably zoom that in for you, that there was quite a bit of rotations on the tape today. By the way, please read the full risk disclaimer right there. Everything that we're going through is for information purpose only in this video. I'm now just going to zoom in on the spreadsheet so that you can kind of see what I'm referring to. But the VIX was down 2% today. I'll also go over the gold and Bitcoin moves today. Those were very interesting. Small caps underperformed for the day. A reminder that they outperformed yesterday, so a little bit of a give back there. Micro caps were down 0.7 of a percentage point. The Qs were flat. S&P was exactly flat, unged for the day. But like I said, a lot of rotations that happened under the hood. So let me get to some of the movers for the day, and we'll kind of go a little bit more in depth. But let me get the right screen up here. All right, so there we go. SPY. Not really anything changed from yesterday. Both with SPY and the Qs. We're kind of pausing a little bit right at the previous highs, but we are above the value area for the month, and we're above all those short-term moving averages. The Qs, it's the same damn thing. Where we've reclaimed the value area for the month, but we're kind of hesitating at those previous highs. And then IWM, which I mentioned, underperformed today, and I'll also give you just what the IWC looked like. They look very similar, the micro caps and the small caps, IWC, IWM, staying right around that 5-day moving average and above the value area for the month. I'm going to give you one more of the index charts too, and that's the diamonds, because today felt more like a diamonds type day. Wow, look at that. That's a new closing high for the Dow. So as I mentioned, it felt more like this was what the market liked today. And I think going through some of the earnings reports from this morning, that could be a catalyst for some rotation. We could also just be seeing some rotation out of some, I'll call it, frothy areas of the market. Number one, look at this, like GM. I can't remember the last time that GM went up about 15% on earnings. And this is what they call a, I'm joking a little bit here, but this is what they call a value stock, right? We really haven't seen the value stocks do much. It's been all growth for the last few months. And I'm looking at the earnings history for General Motors. Sure enough, I can't see a report where they've gone up over 10% in the last 10 years, let alone 14%. So they did have one quarter about a year ago where they went up 9.8%, but they got an 8% in there too, but nothing over 10% in the last 10 years. Also, if you look at it and I'm not going to go over every earnings report, but Raytheon, which I thought was a buying opportunity, I actually put this in the TTG trend portfolio yesterday, just a small weight in there because I don't really like to take that kind of earnings risk. But I'm like, I really think Raytheon is a good buying opportunity in here, and the stock went up 7%. GE, which I also talked about, and I'm still holding a position. Let's see if it can continue to kind of go that way of up and to the right. I thought they had a really good quarter. They were at one point up at 314. I peeled a little bit of a position off at 314, but not much. I don't really have much of a trade on, so I might actually be looking to add GE here. But I actually think it's good to see some of this and not just data center stocks go up and uranium stocks go up. And, while there's been a lot of themes in that area, there's been a lot of moves that have been pretty parabolic looking. So Netflix reported after the close. They did fall. I did not put on a Netflix trade. I really just didn't feel like I had much edge. Normally I sell a put spread. They did have a one-time charge which was because of Brazil and I think that's the NFL that they had to settle. But overall, I don't really know what the growth catalyst is for Netflix. So that's the story with Netflix. Also, Texas Instruments reported after the close. They typically are not like one of the big names big semis that people really trade a lot. They're not. They haven't really been an outperformer. Previous to last earnings, previous to oh sorry, it was a couple earnings reports again, but Texas Instruments fell 13% last quarter. Again, they're not one of like the best performers on earnings day. They're actually one of those that historically are not very good on earnings. So I'm not that discouraged with that. Notice all these VPOCs, by the way, taken out to the downside. So I would be watching the low of 1150 um, because there isn't another VPOC until about 1111. Let's make sure on this time frame as well. And then the next one down further would be 1048 on that. So just something to kind of keep in mind. So that was the one story today, and we could go through some of these charts, and a lot of these charts are gonna kind of look the same. IREN down to the 20-day moving average, OCLO. These things are they're correcting at this point. This is the biggest move down, I think, for OCLO, or at least very close to it, since it made its high uh, back on uh, back on October 15th. So, this is like if you like these companies for the long term, then you probably want some of this. You probably want some of these names to kind of correct and come off really overbought levels. By the way, the Qs, which I find interesting, is no longer in overbought territory. I would also be mindful that if we do pop out to new highs, notice that the RSI is showing a little bit of a bearish divergence there. It's losing momentum here. This is something that also we've been talking about a little bit, that the breadth has not been super strong. Today, what was the breadth? Where did it close at for the day? We had about 47% up volume. So it was not as bad as where we opened, which was around like 35, 36% up volume. But yesterday we had a good breath day, but we're just not seeing a lot of that. And I thinking that at this point, a lot of the money that was on the sidelines that was ready to kind of go into the market has gone into the market already. And now we're at the point where um, there's some digestion in the marketplace. So I think this is also just kind of throwing around a couple things here, but typically I always view the uh, earning season as kind of tricky because you're going to get some names that go up and you're going to get some names that go down. Right. What we're looking for, of course, is more names that go up versus going down, as a signal that we've got a pretty healthy market, and I think that we're seeing that so far, um, that you're seeing a number of names go up. Now, it may not be the ones that you want to go up, like we mentioned, General Motors and Raytheon and a few others today, but it may just be more of a spread things out type of earnings quarter. Again, I'm just speculating because we're only through about a week and a half of earnings season so far, and we've got a lot of the big names that are going to report earnings. Um, Yet. So again, a lot of times what I try to do during earnings season is just observe. It's fun to predict and try to predict which names are going to go up and go down. And I usually try to put some edge in my favor where I'm looking at earnings history. For example, like if a name has a great history of beating, not just beating, but a positive price reaction. Right? There is a tweet going around today about whether or not Netflix was going to the predicted market was showing whether or not Netflix was going to beat their earnings numbers. I don't really care about that because I'm not betting. Like, that's great for, like, if you want to talk about whether a company beat their earnings expectations at a cocktail party, but that's not going to pay you any money. Right? It matters whether or not the price goes up. That's the most important thing if you're a trader. So for example, and no, I'm not jinxing this company here, but ServiceNow is one of those names that if you look all the way in this right column, which is what I pay attention to, is whether or not the company goes up or down on earnings, right? And I think that's a little bit about there. There's a reason why ServiceNow has gone up 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, about 7 out of the last 10 quarters, and probably about the same when you look at the 20 quarters. So they've probably gone up. I'm not going to count right now, but probably about 15, 16 times out of the last 20 quarters, the stock price has gone up the day after earnings. And that's probably because they know how to set expectations, right? They make expectations so they could just kind of jump over that bar and make it look good. They're also a company that does grow over time. Now, there's occasional miss in there. Nothing is 100%, but that's putting a little bit of edge into what you're doing in terms of looking at some names that are reporting earnings. But a lot of it is just it's just making a prediction. It's kind of a little bit of a when you see a name that's like 50-50 for the last 10 quarters, it's just that it's like flipping a coin. So what I try to do for the most part is, I will I will put some earnings trades on for names that I think that I have an edge in. But for the most part, it's, hey, let's make some observations. And I've already started to compile my earnings list, strong earnings names, gap list. I've got names like American Express on there, APLD, which had a good earnings quarter, Morgan Stanley, which had a good earnings quarter, and I'll be tacking on some names after today. So I started this video saying that there's a couple main themes for the day. The other thing, which I kind of view as, I'm going to say that it's a little bit troubling at this point, not just this company, and it's fine. Like if you're making money on Beyond Meat as it's still going up here after hours, congratulations to you on on a short squeeze like this. Sometimes there are things that kind of get set in motion for short squeezes, but I'm starting to see people go after anything that has high short interest. That's not really, in my opinion, a great investing thesis, just to start looking for anything that has high short interest and buying it. Usually for me, and again, this is me. This isn't. There's many different ways to make money, but I only will buy a name if I've got like three reasons to buy the name, and if short interest happens to be that third or fourth reason, that's great, right? That could provide some upside. But I'm just not going to go out and look at names that have high short interest. We started to see this at the end of the day, like names like Donut were rallying. I saw Sweet Green go up quite a bit towards the end of the day. But another thing to kind of keep in mind with this, if you think about who's long or who's short these names, most of the time the people who are short or taking short positions are probably hedge funds. If they're getting squeezed out of these names, many of them are holding what's called the long short portfolio, where they kind of keep at a constant ratio. So if they have to cover their shorts in things like Sweet Green and Donut and Beyond Meat, they have to basically sell some of their longs too. So that's why you're going to start to see some names go down too, or like some heavier selling pressure. That's just the way it works. You won't just see everything stay static. There's going to be that rotation or a rotationary type trade. So what did I do today? I tried to really not do much. I didn't think today was going to be a great day to trade. I did put on a position. I at this point I want to try to just keep positions and what I'm doing a little bit thinner. But I did like this bounce, this check back into support. So this is the positive of names kind of coming in a little bit. Watching to see where they fall down to and whether or not support is going to hold. Top of value for me, top of the value area for the month is a level of interest, and that's something that where I want to pay attention to. So I was watching this as it got to. I think I mentioned this in Friday's video. I mentioned this name in yesterday's video, and today I acted on it today as it did break into the value area for the week as well. But here's where there's going to be some names that are good buying opportunities. I've heard this expression a number of times, and I'm going to use it recently. But I've used this expression too, when I think it's a Warren Buffett statement. When the tide washes out, right? You basically get to see who's been swimming naked. And that means when from an investing standpoint, right? When the tide's out, like everybody looks, it looks like everybody has a bathing suit on, like everything's going up. When the water washes out, you're going to see which names are quality and which names were just going up with everything else. So that's going to be the key. So there's going to be some good buying opportunities, but there's also going to be a lot of names that are just going to go back, completely go back to where they were before the other rally. I'm sorry, before like the before this big move happened with the AI stuff. Palantir's an interesting name too. This is kind of bottled up here. 184.81, something that I'm watching. I'm watching this move in bonds. TLT was up again. Now I know everybody looks at TLT for whatever reason, because I guess it's the most popular thing. But this is now breaking above the value area. This is long-term bonds plus 20 years. If you go down the duration curve, right, to the lesser maturities, you're going to see that many of the other maturities that are um, shorter maturity are really rallying pretty decently. And this has been going on now for a good number of weeks. This is the 7 to 10 year bond. Um, Even better, IEI. Right now, again, they don't move as much, but look at the difference in the trends in these things. And I've been talking about this for a while. Note my charts are adjusted for dividends. This is super short term. This is 1 to 3 year bonds, right, which have just been going up and to the right. So some of these, like if the longer end of the curve continues to rally, the TLT and the IEF, it should be good for these guys. And these guys had a pretty good day today, the home builders. Right, nice move here. We talked about DHI in the trading room today. Nice move. Pulte had earnings today. They initially went lower, and I think they came back and they finished flat. That's a nice recovery off the lows. I'm not saying I would buy this one, but kind of like that DHI, Toll Brothers. So again, there's definitely some things to watch to play some of these rotational moves, as some of the other areas are correcting in this market. Now, final thought is that while this rotation goes on out of some of the high growth names, you note what the SPY is doing. It's basically doing nothing. It's not going to capture the move that's happening, the whipsaw all over the place. So I think for the most part, we'll continue to kind of look for trades as we go along as earnings season progresses. But it's okay to be a little bit defensive and tone down the trading, watching for who's going to come out of earnings season as your next leaders. Remember, that always seems to happen, right? Names that surprise, or that's why we put together an earnings list every quarter, for members, so that you can spot the ones that are going to be the new potential leaders over the next 3 months. And vice versa. The ones that don't have a good quarter are often dead money until they have a better earnings report, or until they come out with a product that might be dazzling investors. I'll leave it there, guys. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.